What does real power look like? A diamond ring? A custom suit worth tens of thousands of dollars? Or is it something you don't even recognize until it's far too late? It was an early October morning in Manhattan. A sharp wind swept down Hudson Avenue, snatching magazines from the hands of strangers. Hudson Spire, the tallest financial tower in America, stood firm against the autumn sky, gleaming and cold. This wasn't just a place for the ultra-wealthy. This was where a single name on a business card could ripple through global markets. On the ground floor sat the Citadel Private Banking Lounge, a space not meant for ordinary people, but for those who silently own the world. Chandeliers from baccarat sparkled from the ceiling. The air carried hints of Creed Aventus and polished Italian leather. The Calicut marble floors gleamed so perfectly they reflected not just your face, but your state of mind. Women walked by in Manolo Blahnik heels, Hermes Himalaya bags resting casually on their shoulders. Men in Tom Ford suits spoke volumes with a single glance. No words needed. And then, Isabel Moore walked in. She brought no fame, no security detail, no designer handbag or Patek Philippe watch. Just a worn canvas tote, a pair of scuffed Todd's loafers, and a folded withdrawal slip tucked neatly inside a plain leather wallet. Isabel, 38. Unmistakable. Her beauty wasn't loud, but deeply rooted. Dark brown eyes, hair pulled back, a white blouse slightly wrinkled but clean. There was a quiet in her stride, as if the noise of the world simply couldn't touch her. She wasn't looking for attention. She wasn't asking for anything. She simply walked to the counter, slow, calm, assured. And then, her voice, soft as morning mist. "I'd like to withdraw $500 in cash." 1 second passed, then 2, then 3, and the world around her froze in a single glance. The first glance, one that would shake an entire empire. The silence didn't last long. Inside the bank lounge, where even a breath carried the scent of power and control, light laughter began to ripple through the air. Short, thin, cutting, as if they just witnessed a small joke unfold on a grand stage. A woman draped in a fox fur coat, cappuccino in hand from the members' only barista station, gave a sideways glance and said loud enough for 3 others nearby to hear, "She must think this is a community bank." A trio of men in Zegna suits stood by the reception desk, snickering like high school boys. One of them muttered, "Looks like she just walked here from Chinatown. Didn't even bother to change." At the counter, Marissa, a teller with laser-cut features, dressed in balmain, her nails painted a fierce Dior red, glanced up. A fake smile flickered across her face like a stone skipping once on a still lake. "There's an ATM outside, ma'am," she said, her voice sugar-sweet and chemically smooth. For smaller transactions. Isabel didn't flinch. She stood tall, her brown eyes steady. "I have an account here, and I'd like to withdraw cash. $500. Marissa raised an eyebrow, as if she'd just heard something wildly out of place. She lowered her gaze to her computer screen, typed a few strokes, and furrowed her brow, deliberately. "Isabel Moore? I don't see your name on the VIP list. Are you sure you didn't wander into the priority client section by mistake?" A man in a white suit burst out laughing and practically shouted, "Get her a one-way ticket to the nearest ATM." The laughter spread wider. More and more eyes turned toward Isabel, as if watching a silent play unfold in an overpriced theater. But Isabel remained still. Her hand rested gently on the strap of her bag. Her eyes locked onto Marissa, not to apologize, but to remind her. The woman standing before her today was not as ordinary as they assumed. The laughter didn't stop. It spread like oil across the ivory marble floor, reflected in every polished heel and sparkling baccarat chandelier above. Isabel stood still in the center of the lounge, like a single flawed brushstroke on an otherwise perfect canvas. Marissa leaned in closer, her voice lower now, dripping with disdain. "You know, I honestly thought you were here to apply for a janitor position." A few chuckles rang out behind her. A man in a Tom Ford suit glanced at his phone, then flipped the camera around toward Isabel. "Let's live stream this. This one's going viral." A second later, her image, canvas tote, worn-out shoes, and calm expression were up on Instagram with the caption, "Try to withdraw at Citadel with just $500. Bold. Marissa typed Isabel's name again, this time loudly, making sure the keyboard clicks echoed. She squinted at the screen. No account under that name. Perhaps you're at the wrong bank? This is Citadel Private Lounge, not a public branch. She turned to a colleague and smirked. Maybe she thinks this is Wells Fargo. A woman in a high-collared Ralph Lauren dress whispered to her friend. I've seen this type before. Fake cards, sob stories, old tricks. Another man called out from across the room. She probably just came in for some aesthetic shots, aspiring rich girl vibes. A passing employee leaned toward Marissa and said quietly, I'll notify security if you want. She's drawing too much attention. Might even be a threat. An older woman seated nearby looked up at Isabel and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. We need tighter screening protocols. We can't just let anyone walk into a place like this. Isabel still said nothing. She simply placed the withdrawal slip back on the counter, folded even neater this time. Please check again. Her words were light as air, but cut like a blade sliding through a veil of coffee steam. And the things escalated beyond mockery. Bradley, the floor manager, appeared. A middle-aged man with slick-back hair, Hermes tie, and a smirk that said too much. What's going on here, Marissa? This woman is... Marissa crossed her arms, raised a brow, and pointed to Isabel. Someone is trying to withdraw $500 in cash. No name in the system. Bradley turned to Isabel like he'd just spotted a system error. This area is reserved for clients with 8-figure investment portfolios. If that doesn't include you, I'm afraid your presence is disturbing others. He looked toward a male client and half-joked. She's probably withdrawing her life. Savings might just cover an espresso here. Laughter erupted again. Someone whistled. Phones are now aimed directly at Isabel's face. Then, he gestured to security. Vince and another guard stepped forward, polite but firm. Ma'am, unless you have further documentation, we'll need you to come with us. A woman in a red Chanel dress chuckled. She looks like she's auditioning for a reality show. Imposter among the ultra-rich. No more smiles. No more casual glances. Isabel, a woman who simply asked to withdraw $500, now stood at the center of a circle of power, prejudice, and cruelty. In a world where simplicity was a sin, she was the exception that wasn't allowed to exist. The crowd wasn't just laughing. They were attacking, with contempt wrapped in polite smiles, cruel jokes disguised as banter, and phones held high, recording everything with a kind of twisted delight. A young woman in a fiery red dress began live streaming, latte still swirling in her hand. Make her trend, queen of $500. The crowd responded with slow claps, not in celebration, but as a form of public mockery. Marissa made no effort to hide her triumph. She stepped forward onto the teller's platform, her stiletto heels clicking against the wood like a judge delivering a sentence. She raised her phone, streaming live to thousands of viewers, ticking up by the second. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Isabel Moore, who thought her secondhand shoes and a $500 withdrawal dream would get her into our financial world. She tilted the camera down to Isabel's feet, her voice thick with sarcasm. These worn-out Tods, walking in a Citadel? Pinterest-worthy, how to dress for financial failure. A woman in an Oscar de la Renta dress laughed out loud. My dress costs more than her bank balance. Shutter clicks echoed. They zoomed in on everything. The faint scratch on her bag strap, the crease in her blouse, the shoes that didn't gleam under the marble lights. Someone in the crowd, perhaps to add punctuation to their disdain, threw a Mont-Blanc pen straight at Isabel. It struck her foot. The cap flew off. A loud, gleeful "OHHH" erupted. A man in a white suit leaned to his friend and said, She'll go viral. But not for the reason she hoped. An older woman, wearing Celine glasses, turned to a nearby security guard and whispered, I feel threatened by her presence. This kind of behavior isn't safe for a premium environment. And yet, Isabel stood there. No resistance, no bowed head, but her eyes, deep brown, unshaken, held the pain like a blade slicing through air and silence. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. But in that moment, everyone in that room had chosen the wrong person to humiliate. The glass revolving door at the front of the bank suddenly turned. The air shifted, like someone had dropped a lead weight into the center of a still lake. Then came the sound, low, sharp, the screech of sudden brakes right outside. Every head in the lounge turned toward the glass doors. A fleet of jet-black Maybach GLS 600s had come to a stop at the main entrance. No decorative plates needed. Each car sat like a silent declaration of true power. The door of the lead vehicle opened, and stepping out was none other than Leonard Voss. Zegna couture, suit tailored to his tall frame. Steel gray eyes, sharp as blades. Salt and pepper hair slicked back with quiet precision. But more than his appearance, it was his presence, silent, composed, and cutting cold, cold that froze the room. The whispers came first. Is that Leonard Voss? He actually came here? I thought he only showed up to global summits. No one had expected it. The founder of Voskor Capital, one of the largest private equity firms on the planet, had arrived. Unannounced. No assistants. No media entourage. Just him, walking into the Citadel banking lounge. Marissa froze. Her dark red lipstick trembled. Bradley stepped half a foot back, fumbling to straighten his Hermes tie. Leonard said nothing, looked at no one. He strode straight through the lounge, his leather shoes striking the marble floor like a metronome of judgment. And then he stopped, right in front of Isabel. She was still surrounded, still upright, but never bowed. Leonard reached out, gently placed a hand on her shoulder. A simple gesture, yet the entire space held its breath. Are you okay, Belle? His voice was low, just for her, but every word carved itself into the marble silence. Isabel nodded, a soft smile, serene, as if nothing had ever happened. I'm okay. And then Leonard turned to face the entire room. His eyes swept over Marissa, Bradley, and all those holding up their phones to live stream. His voice rang out, not loud, but sharp enough to slice through marble and pride. I'd like to withdraw all $5.1 billion from the Citadel system immediately. Effective now. Silence turned to shock. Then chaos. The LED screen behind the counter began to flicker wildly. Marissa went pale. Bradley's mouth opened, but no words came. Someone dropped a phone. A customer spilled their coffee. The room spiraled into a domino of gasps, clatters, and disbelief. Leonard continued, each word in a sentence. And by the way, the woman you just humiliated is my wife. At that moment, the world went still. Not because of a display of power, but because the truth had just struck like lightning through a storm of performative wealth. The woman they had deemed unworthy was now the one person who could bring down an entire financial empire. With a single signature. No one spoke. No one dared move. The Citadel banking lounge was frozen, as if time itself had stopped. Leonard Voss, the most powerful man in private finance, stood among them. No bodyguards. No PR advisors. Just a glance. And the world bowed. His eyes moved slowly, deliberately, across every face in the room. Marissa, who had been live streaming, fumbled to turn off her phone, both hands shaking. Bradley, the manager, stood pale as if every drop of blood had fled his face. Those who once stared at Isabel with mockery now dropped their heads, avoiding eye contact like children caught cheating. Leonard didn't need many words. He didn't need any. Just one sentence. The woman you just humiliated is my wife. Each word fell on the marble like a clean, cold strike. Precise. Inevitable. Undeniable. Bradley stammered. Mr. Voss, there must have been some kind of misunderstanding. Leonard lifted his hand, a quiet signal to stop. No one even dared breathe. Then he turned to Isabel with a gentleness, respect, and deep trust that cut deeper than any command. Would you like to finish this yourself? Isabel nodded slightly, and then, for the first time since stepping into the band, she reached into her bag. She pulled out something small, thin, black, a nameless card with a titanium edge, engraved with the Voskor emblem. She laid it on the counter. Marissa, her hands trembling, picked it up and slid it into the scanner. Beep. The screen lit up. A wave of numbers cascaded down, each one a slap to the arrogance of the entire room. Personal account, $512 million. Investment holdings, $3.8 billion. Trusts and share portfolios, over $700 million. The room erupted into complete silence. Marissa gasped. Bradley stumbled 2 steps back. Someone dropped their coffee onto the floor. A woman whispered, She has more than this entire bank. Isabel lifted her head. Her gaze was not angry. It was serenely terrifying. You mocked me over $500. She paused. Then try $500 million. And I want it withdrawn. Immediately. The once impenetrable main hall of the Citadel now echoed with rushed footsteps, frantic typing, and urgent phone calls. But Isabel stood still, calm, composed, as if she were merely signing for a bouquet of flowers. In front of her, the master tablet of Citadel's internal financial system. Clara, Leonard's senior aide, impeccably dressed in a tailored gray suit, had already linked the accounts. Everything is ready, Mrs. Voss, Clara said, her tone precise, cold as protocol. Isabel took the stylus. She looked at the screen for one long second, just enough to remember every face that had ridiculed her. Then she signed, a single delicate stroke, light as air, yet enough to blow away an entire bank. On the massive LED screen mounted in the center of the lounge, lines of text began to roll. Transfer, minus $5,100,000,000 USD. Status, processing. Destination, Voss Offshore Fund, Zurich. The entire room seemed to freeze solid. A man buried his face in his hands. A woman pulled out her phone with trembling fingers, dialing her lawyer. The branch director, Edward, came rushing down from the second floor, tie crooked, eyes wide in panic. Mr. Voss, Mrs. Moore, we can negotiate. Please reconsider. Leonard said nothing, but Isabel turned to Edward, voice clear, unwavering. When I only wanted to withdraw $500, you called me a nuisance. Now that I'm withdrawing $5 billion, you call me a valued client. The issue was never the number. It was the way you saw people. Bradley had collapsed to his knees. Marissa stood frozen, face pale as paper, her lips moving but no sound coming out. Clara spoke softly, without drama. Transfer complete. Assets have been withdrawn from Citadel. Then the screen lit up again. A cold mechanical announcement. Citadel Financial System. Total asset drop, 41.7%. A gasp echoed. A woman whispered. They just brought down an empire with a single signature. Isabel looked around. Not for revenge, but for closure. She adjusted the strap of her old canvas bag, then turned to Leonard. Let's go. There's nothing left for me here. And while the entire bank still drowned in chaos and disbelief, they walked out like they just wrapped up a quiet business meeting. A meeting that had just shaken the foundation of New York's financial world. As the glass doors of Citadel Banking Lounge slowly closed behind them, the chaos inside still echoed faintly. But Isabel never looked back. She walked on, her worn Todd's heels tapping against the marble like a drum roll, signaling the end of an era. Outside, the fleet of Maybachs awaited. Leonard opened the door for her, as if it were any ordinary moment. But the look in his eyes held pride, gratitude, and unspoken love. The car pulled away from Hudson Spire, leaving behind a crumbling empire, once considered the pinnacle of financial power, now collapsing like a sandcastle in a storm. Inside the Citadel Command Center, it was nothing short of a financial inferno. Executives screamed into satellite phones. Red alerts flooded the internal systems. Legal teams and board members fled headquarters like it was ground zero. Liquidity across accounts froze in under 47 minutes. Servers overloaded. Withdrawal requests skyrocketed by 600%. The chief accountant fainted in an emergency meeting. Some employees cried on the spot as market alerts rang out. Citadel may lose its operating license. Phones rang nonstop. Major investors canceled meetings, pulled out funds within hours. Citadel stock was suspended on the NYSE after a catastrophic plunge. Media swarmed the building. Camera zoomed in on once proud faces, now the faces of a collapse. Experts called it a moral earthquake in banking, where arrogance was punished by irreversible financial loss. And it all began with a woman dismissed for requesting to withdraw $500. The markets panicked. Investors stampeded. Reporters scrambled to explain the downfall of a giant fell by a single moment of prejudice and pride. Just hours later, Citadel's stock plummeted 43%. Headlines blazed. The $500 woman who brought Wall Street's crown jewel to its knees. Marissa's livestream was met with outrage. Boycotted, condemned. Bradley was suspended indefinitely. Edward, the branch director, is now under internal investigation. But while the world debated, dissected, judged, and unraveled, Isabel was somewhere else. A quiet wooden cabin in the northern suburbs. Pine trees swaying in the wind. Evening sunlight streaming into the kitchen. Isabel washed vegetables. Leonard set the table. No press conference. No revenge speech. No need to scream. Just a woman who had walked through a storm and kept her peace intact. She hadn't shouted, hadn't proven herself, hadn't fought back with fury. She had simply entered, faced it, and walked out with the grace of someone who knows exactly who they are. And the world? The world would never forget her name, because real power doesn't need to perform. It just needs the right moment to speak. And when a woman like Isabel Moore speaks, every prejudice must fall silent. She didn't need anyone to defend her. She didn't need to yell or strike back in rage. All she needed was one truth and one signature. That alone was enough to quiet the entire world. And from it, we all learned something. That the loudest voice isn't the most powerful one, but the one that stays calm, dignified, even when the whole world turns away. Isabel Moore never had to prove herself with money. She proved herself through dignity. And that was what collapsed a bank and built a legacy that cannot be erased. Her story isn't just about a financial downfall. It's a powerful reminder that every person, regardless of what they wear, where they come from, or what they own, deserves to be treated with respect. When the world still chases appearances and judgments, one simple act, firm and honest, can spark a change far greater than any campaign. Our belief: true strength doesn't lie in power or fame. It lies in dignity, what you hold on to when others try to take it from you. This story is for everyone who's ever been misunderstood, overlooked, or dismissed, and still chose to live with kindness. Have you ever been judged for how you dress, how you speak, or simply because you were quiet? You're not alone. Share your story in the comments. Like and subscribe to Toch Story to spread this message. Because the world doesn't lack brilliance, but it sorely lacks those who know how to respect others. And if you believe in stories that move the heart, don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss our next video.